Hello, and welcome everyone to the third installment in the AI Impact series. I'm excited that SmartBrief's AI Impact Virtual Summit is back again this year, this time with a series of webinars that explore how AI is transforming work at the industry level. Today, we are joined by thought leaders and industry insiders who will share how you should be thinking about AI in your own work and what it will take to make the most out of it. Over the course of 4 sessions on AI, we are exploring how AI will likely impact the future in 4 key sectors: the future of work, the future of IT, tech, and cybersecurity, the future of retail, and the future of education. I'm excited to dive in on how AI will affect the future of retail, as it's such a tangible, everyday sector. We're all making purchases each month, from home products and necessities to clothing and electronics. How those decisions are made and influenced by the shopping interface and UX, well, it's already an art and a science, but as AI enters the scene and is able to help customize that experience further for shoppers, a huge shift in retail is on the horizon. You'll find out today what tools are already in use by major retailers and what trends and predictions are likely to be next for the sector. You're going to leave today's session armed with ideas and insights needed to make a real impact with AI. My name is Mackenzie Puddesy from Future B2B, and I'm excited to be your moderator for this timely discussion. This session is produced by SmartBrief, a part of Future B2B, and sponsored by Cantor. Now, if you've attended our megacast, ecocasts, and summits in the past, you may notice a little bit different format on this series with a mix of keynote sessions, panel discussions, and guest speakers, and this should definitely make for a dynamic session today. In addition to myself, my friends and fellow moderators are here on live chat and waiting in the wings. So, that being said, let's say hello. I want to make sure you're all awake and alive out there. So, why don't you find the questions tab in your console, and let's start out by saying hi, hello, bonjour, hola, aloha, or whatever greeting you would like to send out to the community here with you today. Now, as a quick side note, that window is also the best place to reach out and let us know if you have any technical issues during the session. Knocking on wood, of course, that does not happen. But don't forget that a browser refresh should get rid of those usual tech gremlins that you've got lying around and you just haven't got rid of them yet. But if not, just shoot a message in that questions tab, and the future B2B crew and I will be there to help. Now, if you are working with AI, there is an opportunity to win an award and get your project in the limelight. SmartBrief's newest innovation award is open for nominations from teams that are leading the development and application of AI to advance progress across industries. Launched in tandem with the SmartBrief AI Impact webinar series, the the SmartBrief Innovation Awards in AI will recognize the most cutting edge solutions to business challenges in retail, IT, cybersecurity, education, and people management. Entrants may be in market or poised for market entry in 2025, and submissions will be assessed based on the degree of innovation and business impact. Participating companies pay a fee to enter, and not all nominated products are winners. However, all nominees and winners will be featured in a program guide published after judging is complete in October. To learn more, go to the Handouts tab, where you can find a link outlining all of the details so that you can submit your application. The deadline to enter is September 20th. In addition to the incredibly valuable information coming down at the pipeline, or coming down the pipeline at you, I've also got some exciting things for you today. Some additional prizes. Today, you could win one of three $300 Amazon gift cards that we will be giving away to 3 lucky winners who are here, present, and live with us on the webinar. You can find the full T's and C's linked in the Handouts tab if you have any questions about that. And with that, we have all the housekeeping behind us, and I believe we are ready to rock. I'm sure you're all excited and pumped up and ready to hear the speakers that we've got aligned for you here today. So please join me in welcoming Jason Seba. Jason is the Chief Marketing Officer of Session AI, and he's going to be presenting on AI rewriting the e-commerce playbook. I'm super excited for this. So, Jason, I'm going to let you start, and I'm passing things over to you. Take it away.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me. Looking forward to talking AI overall, AI in e-commerce, and a little bit about kind of real-time behavioral AI as well today. Really looking forward to the conversation. To start it out, it's just why am I even here talking with you, and what gives me any any right to even talk about AI? For me, it's really personal. I've had the opportunity to work for a number of kind of AI, big data, machine learning startups over the last few years. I spent 5 years at a company called Bloomreach early on. Had the opportunity to also join that technical co-founder and do another company around AI in HR, and just had also the opportunity to kind of roll out some AI solutions in different companies over the years. And one example was in one early startup, we were able to run a model that was able to improve CAC essentially 30% on a 10-year-old company, just by focusing in on the right customers. And so I'm really kind of a geek at heart and passionate about this stuff. And so looking forward to talking with you over the next about 20 minutes. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about what's going on. If you're not in the Bay Area, what's going on in the Bay Area? There's a new resurgence, I think, with AI that's happening. If you haven't heard, I was going to tell a quick example of actually had a founder. There was a founder, and there's these AI hackathons that are going on, almost every night. You can pick an AI event to go to, and there was a hackathon over a weekend, and one of the co-founders actually built an AI wearable that records everything that people say, transcribes it in real time to your phone, then summarizes it with to-dos, and then you can query it with an LLM. And so, just to give you just kind of an idea of the excitement around what's going on here, it was funny. The guy built the device and then said, did a Kickstarter, was shipping them in the next couple of weeks, and was saying like, hey, like you can even like come up and pick it up from our office on a Sunday afternoon. I mean, it's just the level of excitement of what's going on is just awesome. And I know now kind of people are able to kind of touch and feel AI in a way that they just really haven't in the past, obviously with ChatGPT and others. And so we're just going to talk about about what's going on in AI overall, and then we'll talk about how that's really hitting e-commerce. Let's start by talking about just these large language models. So there's lots of different types of AI they're kind of hitting, but these large language models are the ones that are really, I think, visible to everyone. And so something just to call out here is that the kind of quality of these large language models seems to be continuing to go up with the size of compute and the data that is being thrown at them. And so, and we just had kind of the first language models that cost more than $100 million to train. And there's even some, Microsoft and OpenAI are talking about building kind of like the world's biggest supercomputer, and they looked across more than 20 states. And they weren't even able to find a state where they wouldn't take down the power grid because of the size of these models. And so, just to have an idea of what's like coming over the next few years, really the size of these AI models really comes down to compute and really just energy that people are throwing at it. And so, data obviously plays a big role, but I think we'll see, the first, kind of $500 million model, maybe $1 billion to train these models. So definitely a fun time ahead. This is actually a tweet that was deleted from an OpenAI researcher, and it's talking about types of data that they're using to train. And this is about essentially synthetic data. And so one of the concepts as you're thinking about AI is just not just training on human data, but actually having these large language models train on its own data. So essentially, you make predictions or use the AI to get an answer, and then you have the AI then check to see how good the answer was, and you continue to do that over and over and over again to actually build it up and make it better. And so, I think I think we're just just on the edge of some really big breakthroughs. There's a couple interesting books too that have recently come out. One's The Coming Wave, and the other one, it's a little bit geekier, but The Singularity is Nearer by Ray Kurzweil. Would definitely recommend some of those books if you're trying to get a grasp on kind of what's going on in this broader world. And also just the AIs are, in different kind of human areas are getting better and better. And so you can see here over the last few years, whether it's reading comprehension, image recognition, and really now predictive reasoning, like getting to the level of kind of, reasonable human performance. And one of the ways to think about this too is really right now you have almost like an unlimited amount, kind of humans, kind of human level help that might be kind of lower level. But when you start to think about like the impact of this, thinking about, you might have, kind of an unlimited set of PhD level people to reason for you or to work on your behalf as an agent. And so how that's going to change society and change our work is pretty dramatic. It was interesting. Stanford actually did a survey kind of end of last year that talked about how people already are perceiving kind of the change in AI. It really surprised me, actually. The first one wasn't as surprising to me that, it's likely that your current job will change. So, over half of people said AI will change their job in the next 5 years. But I thought it was pretty impressive that, over a third of people are already thinking that AI will replace their job in the next 5 years. And so we'll talk about some of the areas where that's already starting to happen. But just a realization that this is not only, kind of a business change, but really a societal level change. If if you're in the, following the news, Google got hit with an antitrust case the last couple of weeks, and so what's interesting is, I think Google's been like the best search experience for such a long time, but there are, new players that are coming, and this AI search is really what's going to transform, I think, kind of the day-to-day usage of AI in people's lives. And so we'll talk about how that's going to change kind of purchase for recommendations and also discovery and purchase. So also it's like how you solve problems. So I'm kind of a geek at heart, and I'm into like weird Japanese hip hop and things that people might not be so interested in. But I tracked down a boombox, like an old '80s Panasonic boombox, and drove a while to go get it, and got there, and it just like didn't work. And so I took it anyways, and asked Claude and others like how to actually get through this and fix it. And it guided me through, and I was able to get to a really sweet boombox here. And this ties in a little bit into the recommendations that might be coming as well. But you know, people can learn. I think as you think about like the skills that people need to acquire going forward, it's really going to be about like how do you learn, and how is it essentially your intelligence with the machine. And so I'm not like an amazing electronics engineer, but to be able to like take this thing apart and actually fix it based on AI guidance was just really cool. All right, so let's talk about AI and e-commerce and how it's going to affect things. And so, take for example, let's say last year's trendiest sunglasses. It used to be that you would, search and go to a list of Google links. But really, tomorrow, what's going to be happening is you're going to have an AI agent that will help essentially go through many different sites. So when you're talking about discovery, going through lots of different sites and understanding and personalizing the results to you based on your interests. And then I think over time as well, you're going to even see essentially the machine recommend things for you and take action on your behalf. And so, and we'll talk about that in the kind of product purchase side. But on the top and around discovery, for example, like I was talking about, I'm into Japanese, let's say hip hop mixtapes, and it'll actually go and find the audience for that is very small, but those things are showing up on eBay or they're showing up on people's sites, and I want to know about those newest things, and they'll recommend those to me proactively. When it comes to product purchase, already people are starting at Amazon more than anywhere, but they're also starting on many retailer sites. You see that with the growth of kind of retail media networks and how valuable that attention is when people are searching. Tomorrow, you'll see AI devices, even like the Rabbit R1 and others, where they'll start to recommend and actually take action for you. And so in the future, in kind of this kind of future state, I think people will just give over agency to the machine, and essentially you'll never want to think about soap again, right? So I'll just say, I never want to think about soap. If it's too much, let me know. If not, if there's not enough, I'll let you know. But also it'll then go out and search for soap in the right places with the right timing of delivery and a place that's trusted based on others' experiences. And so there's going to be a layer of intermediation between the buyer and the seller. And so, in a lot of ways, people are going to need to develop on their websites and kind of their function to deal with an AI agent as opposed to a person on the other end. All right, this is maybe the kind of dust stat of the presentation, but 97% of companies are considering the use of AI, but already 50% of companies are already experimenting and really driving their business with AI. And we'll jump into kind of these are the common applications, right? Product recs are a place where AI is really happening. Demand forecasting, creating content, doing dynamic pricing, looking at churn prediction and in-session marketing is something that we do at Session AI, where we're able to predict purchase intent in real time. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Chatbots, virtual assistants, fraud detections, companies like Signified and others who are detecting fraud in real time using AI to do that. And then also um, inventory management and solving problems there. Those are the common applications that we're seeing already with AI. And then this is a breakdown. This is actually some research that Salesforce did around where AI is already making an impact. And you can see that customer experience and call centers, other areas, those are the areas where it seems like people are really driving to start. Discovery, you can see, is in the middle, and then personalization is lagging behind. But we'll definitely get there. And when people are talking about kind of the barriers to adoption, security and trust still seem to be big. It's interesting, data quality continues to be an issue. But then if you look at the bottom, deprioritization against other initiatives, like this is definitely happening. Things are starting to change quickly, and things are getting prioritized against other benefits. I definitely think starting with the business problem first, not necessarily just with the technology, is definitely important. All right, so let's talk about some of the trends that are going on in e-commerce and are driving some of the big changes. One of the things that's happening is alongside this kind of change with AI is just this push for privacy. Kind of Google, Apple, and Meta are all kind of limiting customer data, and regulations are really more restrictive than they've ever been. And then, I mean, anyone who's using an iPhone is seeing the pop-up of ask not to track, and people are just not revealing personal information about themselves. And what that's doing, it's really making conversion much harder for a lot of companies. And really, this can range, but on average, 90% of site visitors are anonymous, and so people are just not revealing themselves, kind of at the beginning of the purchase funnel. And those people are converting at a much lower rate, right? So we found that anonymous users are converting at 7x lower than registered. Obviously, that's a different step in their journey. But people are spending a ton of money on acquisition, and 60% of first time visitors never come back. And so it's so important to kind of get to that first conversion so that you can begin a relationship with someone for the long term. And so what we're seeing, one of the reasons why kind of our behavioral AI exists is because there's this unique opportunity in anonymous, right? You're spent really much of kind of marketing technologies that are out there are very focused on the known and matched users. And maybe that's 10%, maybe that's 20% of traffic, but that's the CDP, that's CRMs, ESPs, kind of personalization, vendors, retargeting. It's all focused on people you already know, but there's this huge group of people that are just really underserved going to sites. And so one of the kind of new things that's coming is this behavioral AI that can really unlock value for the anonymous. And this is something that just really hasn't existed before. It's definitely a category that will exist. It's just too valuable not to, and we'll talk about what that looks like. So this behavioral AI, so with Session AI, we're actually able to predict purchase intent in 5 clicks. And so we're looking at signals and behavior, and it has essentially no customer data at all. Only trying to understand people's intent as they move through the site, as they browse, etc. What you're able to do with that is we're actually able to predict who will buy, who won't buy, and who's on the fence. And so this idea of people who are likely to buy, you just wouldn't give them offers. You would focus on upsell. For people who are on the fence, this is where you might focus your incentives. really do things to drive conversion because you know that they're on the fence and able to take action. And then for people who are unlikely to buy, you may nurture them, try to drive them in store if you're a retailer. Let me tell you about what this actually means for customers. And so this is an $11 billion retailer that we worked with. And so one of the kind of strongest use cases of this kind of real-time behavioral AI is around optimizing incentives. And so this retailer, we were able to predict, about a quarter of people were likely to buy. See, 27% of them were likely to buy. But what's crazy here is that 83% of the $105 million of coupon spend were going to these people who were already going to buy. You can imagine there's just like a lot of value left on the table. You can see in the middle, there's about 44% of people were on the fence. And so those were people who were influenceable at that moment. So what we were able to do is actually reduce that promo spend 35% in the first year. And so they saved $40 million right to the bottom line based on just treating people differently based on their behavior in real time. It's just a unique new way of being able to treat people differently based on their behavior. It's just really like I said, this is a tactic that will exist in the market. We're just the first ones there. But this is something that is just too valuable to kind of not exist in the market. And like we said, it drove a $40 million impact. Across lots of customers, we actually looked across a lot of our customers, and this is kind of the average where you see that for this specific use case, about 2/3 of promo budget is redeemed by highly likely buyers. And you can't really get rid of all of it. There's obviously some traffic impact that you have by doing site-wide offers. But when you're able to focus in on treating people differently in real time based on their behavior, it really changes the outcomes. All right. One of the other pieces here is kind of repurposing site-wide offers and doing these kind of more focused and targeted offers. So essentially a 2% reduction in site-wide, even like, let's say you shorten your site-wide offers for just, a day in a long campaign or even just a few hours. It actually opens up a bigger discount or more focused incentives for the people who are on the fence. There's lots of use cases also for companies that are not like highly promotional as well on showing people the right data at the right time. But this is just when you think about the change that you can make in consumer behavior based on kind of a targeted incentive. It's driven really strong outcomes for our customers. Let me tell you a quick couple stories. So Tailor Brands, which owns Just Aid Bank and Men's Warehouse, they've been a longtime customer and really driven impact on their conversion rate. So obviously getting more efficient, but also improving conversion rate and getting almost a 20x ROI. Suzanne Scott, their SVP of digital, has been a strong champion for a long time. Just really driven like great outcomes there. And also Forever 21, part of Spark Group, they've driven a higher conversion rate, 24%, and then also increased RPV at the same time. And so just wanted to get to like real world examples of like where this is actually hitting. We're definitely seeing a lot of the largest kind of retailers getting this in before holiday this year. And so there's definitely have a lot more stories to tell after the first of the year. When we really get down to it, this is about unlocking kind of the best way to deploy your resources. And so taking this anonymous behavior and really driving a real-time action. We've also spent a lot of time with retailers talking about like how do you actually get AI implemented in your organization. And one of the things, so Jenna Posner is awesome. She's been, she's at Solo Brands and a bunch of other large startups or large retailers. And one of the things that she talks about that I thought was really interesting was just demystifying AI, that people are already doing it, right? So there's already all these applications where AI is being used, but then there's times when people are kind of skeptical. I know that people are also kind of doing things more in the back office to start and then moving then kind of toward the customer experience. Also, Mike Dupuis, who's CDO at Spark Group, talks about I'm really using this as a lever to drive growth and I'm driving efficiency, right? So talk about revenue growth and really driving down costs. AI is just one of the ways to do this, and this is also a way to kind of up level the conversations in the boardroom too, and able to talk about the things that people care about. We've had a lot of customers coming to us and really just saying like, board members or other executives coming to them and saying like, what's your story on AI, and what are you doing with it to drive outcomes? So that's definitely where I want to leave it. I think really you have to have a story for AI this year, and there are right now. I think there's just a few use cases where it's really driving impact at a high scale, and so we definitely love to connect with you if you're interested, and happy to share also some of the resources, books, and articles that I've been reading that I think really have kind of helped me make sense of the AI world. None of us have it all figured out. Like I think we're all trying to figure it out a bit as we go. So thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. If you want to even take a picture with your phone of the QR code, that just goes straight to my LinkedIn, and I can be happy to share those resources with you. So thanks again. Appreciate you having me, and we'll talk soon. Bye.
Jason, I imagine anyone who is an online retailer and hasn't yet taken any big steps to leverage AI was feverishly taking notes and screen captures of your presentation. Real time behavioral AI sounds like it will help retailers categorize and influence their buyers. Now, that could sound negative, but frankly, I have found that so many companies now give 10, 15% discount intro offers that it makes it feel expected. And as a consumer, I kind of feel like they've built that into the price and essentially it cheapens the deal. So for me, I can imagine this feature will lead to dialing in how promos are offered and it'll actually make consumers feel better as well as, obviously saving money for the retailers. Furthermore, I'm intrigued by how information can be personalized for those organizations not leveraging pricing demos. So you might expect a DM from me bugging you on LinkedIn. Super excited to hear more about that. Those specific features aside, you shared an abundance of data and behavioral trends that confirm the quick adoption of AI and that some big things are on the horizon. Let's see who's the first to train a $1 billion AI and what it'll be able to do. Well, Jason, it's been an absolute pleasure. And now I've got our first prize to give away. Quick reminder that you must be present at the webinar to win. The first of three $300 Amazon gift cards is going out to Stephanie Malaki from Washington. Congratulations, Stephanie. We will be in touch after today's webinar about how you can claim your prize. Alrighty, well, let's keep things moving along because we have got a lot of information and a lot of experts here today to enlighten you on this topic. And we've got the next up in our roster of today's industry experts. We have Carmen Boyo. She's an industry executive of retail at Cantor, and she'll be joined by Susan Rush, who's the director of content at Smart Brief for media, retail, tech, and telecom. Susan and Carmen will discuss trends on the horizon in retail. All right, Carmen, Susan, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. I'm looking forward to my chat with Carmen today. Thanks for joining me, Carmen. I want to break our discussion today into three parts: an overview of generative AI and search, how this affects CPG brand visibility, and then dive into some information about AI retail agents. If you're ready, let's jump in. So, Carmen, how is the integration of generative AI into retail search functions likely to reshape the relationship between shoppers and brands?
Hi, Susan. That's a very good first question. There may be many ways, but I would like to highlight at least two areas. The first one is something not new, and the fact that we are going to have more and more personalized shopping experiences. We know that there are key changes now with AI algorithms that are able to analyze all the customer data and provide that personalized recommendation right to the shoppers, tailor promotions and customized shopping experiences in general. This is going to help and keeps helping retailers increase customer satisfaction and loyalty by offering the products that really match with your individual preferences and shopping behaviors. And we know that we have already key retailers like Amazon and Walmart that are doing this very well and have very strong recommendation engines. An example is Walmart's like process and the way they just use this machine learning. And it's a key differentiator that they have is that they've been really collecting data of all the shoppers for many, many years, right? So one of the important things here is that quality of the AI experience is going to be related always to the quality of the data that you use to feed the AI tools. And in this case now, like that is exactly one of Walmart's differentiators, that they really know or can really predict trends of shoppers in the Midwest versus, for example, the Northeast or other parts of the country, just by having all these amazing and immense amount of data feeding the tool.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to start our conversation today, really keeping in mind that it comes down to the data and the quality of the data. Um, so I'm curious, what potential challenges and opportunities do you see for shoppers and brands as this technology becomes more prevalent in platforms like you mentioned, Walmart and Amazon?
Well, one of the things, of course, is this the data quality and integration, right? As I said earlier, if the data is good, the quality of those experiences and the output will be much better. Otherwise, if you are not feeding the tool with the right data, it could be a disaster. Then the other part is like the challenge can come in really how to allocate cost and resources. For example, when we add technology, any type of technology to a human team, is really understanding what are the tasks that are going to be conducted by humans, by people, versus the tasks that have been conducted or must be conducted by technology. And the third component is privacy and security concerns that are very top of mind for many companies and many brands. There are clients and companies that we have, for example, IKEA, that has also created already an ethical AI task force. There are many, many businesses that are really worried about this piece. And in general, one of the challenges, especially for smaller brands, is going to be related to maybe not having so much visibility. If they don't have the amount of data that these big companies like Walmart and Amazon have about their customers, then they may be a little bit limited in really popping up in search tools and other areas. So it's something that we need to overcome.
Yeah, and how should, CPG brands adapt their visibility strategies as generative AI search evolves?
Yeah, that's a good question. And one of the things that I would recommend is really looking at understanding, like, for example, when we go to search, what is the behavior of shoppers? How do they do their searches? Before and still today, but we were working with keywords and backlinks and content quality. But now we need to think about, okay, how do they try to ask for that content? Do they normally ask specific questions, right? So then you start plugging in your content in the same format. Maybe it's just a question format, maybe it's using the same words. So that really facilitates the enhancement of your search tools and the optimization of the outputs with the search tools. The other thing too that we are seeing more and more is how you combine, or they can combine text and image generators, or text to image generators. So using visualization more and more to really help the shoppers get a better experience and better searches.
Yeah, that's interesting. You're talking about visualization. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, how do you see that? How has that changed, and how do you see it kind of going in the future?
Well, we see already, I mean, how there are different brands, like, for example, Sephora just launched a virtual assistant makeup artist, right? And how just you can try a lipstick and really visualize how that's going to look on you, or especially for some sectors like clothing and fashion, it's going to be so relevant to really just online, sitting on your couch, you can really try on different clothes and see how they really fit and make a decision without even going to the store. So there's a huge opportunity on really using visualization to appeal to the shopper and to really make them like your product right away. Um, there's also an opportunity to use it as well when in the search tools, right? Like the shopper may just enter a text, content, words, and that can translate into images that may help them really like pick or select one brand versus the other just because of the way that they look and the visual appealing of those.
Kind of just following along on that, what new approaches or tactics, should brands adopt to stand out in such an evolving search landscape?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I would say big question. Like, I wish we all had the answers. Definitely, I think what I said earlier, trying to constantly keeping a pulse on how shoppers use Gen AI, and for example, if they are like doing searches, how do they really do the search, what type of questions they use, whether or not there's a question format, and trying to adapt to those is really critical. The other thing too is we have been analyzing and doing research and what we call the human plus model. We try to look into the future trends that may happen in four main categories. The first one is the creative space, the second one is the emotive space, the third one is the extractor area, and fourth one is analytical. And we have seen some trends coming up, especially in 8 groups within those 4 buckets around human behavior, where AI may really have a very key role. For example, in the extractor space is really everything assistant, like trying to play a role to help me manage all the mundane tasks that I have in my everyday life, right? And simplify my day. So that's an area where maybe retailers can look into how can I simplify your search, your shopping experience, make it easier and help you save money and time, right? Like Walmart would argue that they are able to do that now because they just provide the trends and the products that they know you like and you are going to be looking for. So imagine in the family life, they may be able to save 2-3 hours of family time just on the shopping of groceries every week. So that's an example. Another example on the emotive space, which is very interesting, is for example, what we call becoming this adaptive companion, right? If you have all these chat capabilities, and when somebody's searching for something, making sure that you offer that strong listening skills, that the shopper or the individual feels listened and that they feel understood, and that the tool and the brand and the company is really understanding their needs. So there's a lot of opportunities by just understanding or trying to predict consumer and shopper trends.
Yeah, I think that understanding the shopper is such a key component of everything that we're talking about today.
Yeah.
So, kind of along that vein, in what ways could the adoption of AI retail agents revolutionize the retail category management?
Well, I think in many ways, definitely, as we said, like having that holistic support when we talk about, for example, AI-driven chatbots and virtual assistants, that they can provide a 24/7 customer support, being able to answer questions anytime, not only from 8 to 5 Eastern time, and then when you call, nobody's there. That really is going to allow for a holistic customer experience by offering that quick and efficient service. And it's going to free up human staff at the same time. So it's adapting to my schedule, my time. If I want to call at 3 in the morning or talk to this chatbot at 3 in the morning, I can get a question answered, and that fits my schedule. Also, as we said too, the experience through augmented reality, right? Specifically for some categories and sectors like beauty or it could be fashion, but like that opportunity to, like for example, get a piece of furniture and position it in your room and see how it's going to look like. And that visualization of the future is like being able to predict that experience that you are going to have by just buying that product right now before making the purchase. I think is also super powerful.
Yeah, it's interesting. You don't really realize how much you'll enjoy these technologies or advancements as a consumer until you try it out. You want to buy a new piece of furniture, and it is a little exciting to be able to use a tool and have it be in your room and you can move it around. Actually just did that a couple weeks ago, and it was more fun than I was expecting, and it did lead to a purchase. So um, so, so what potential challenges should retailers anticipate in integrating AI agents into their category management processes?
Um, well, I think one of the things is what we discussed. I mean, I will emphasize all the time the power of the data they have, how validated the data they are using is to really fit into those agents. So making sure that they keep learning about their shopper habits, their behaviors and trends. So the agents feel like, or the shoppers feel like, or the consumer feels understood and feels that that agent is really serving their needs. I think that's a critical part, because even though we will be able to reduce human hours and facilitate flexibility and optimization, we shouldn't underestimate the value of and the quality of the data we are using to build those agents and those machine learning tools in the end.
So, I think we've had a great conversation so far. What do you think is next for AI and search?
Yeah, that's looking coming back to like trying to predict the future, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, looking into what roles we actually predicted in an exercise a few months ago, what roles AI could really have, which is what we call the human plus model. And when I think about the relationship of those potential roles with retail, definitely I think one of them could be that ability of being this everything assistant. I think that's really an area where still is to be explored, right? Because when it comes to shopping, we still spend a lot of time. So is there any way for the AI tool to facilitate my experience and simplify our lives that are becoming more and more complex every day? And any tasks that are like really boring that I want to eliminate from my daily schedule so I can spend more time with my family, my kids, doing the things that I love, is an opportunity for retailers to really take over and cover through AI. The other piece, that another area more on the analytical space that we predicted, is like really being or becoming an outcome optimizer, which is more like help me design my life in a way that can make most out of my investment of time and money. So it's also connected, but based on how I want to design my life, how can you really help me allocate my money in whatever is best for me? So it's coming back into optimizing my decision making process, helping me not just shop for the sake of shopping, but really helping me really make the best decisions that are the best decisions for me and my family. Because you already know me, you really know what is best for me, and you may be able to make that emotional connection with me based on my attitudinal statements, my behavior in the past. So is there any way that you can help me optimize that so I feel like I'm making the most of my money and the time that I'm putting behind my actions?
Okay. And, what are the maybe 2 to 3 key points that you want to make sure our audience leaves here with today?
Yeah, good question. Well, one is that, again, in order for us to be able to deliver the best experience and the best optimization possible through AI, we need to really understand the shoppers and really use processes to understand them that are really high quality, that can give us outputs that really we can trust to fit those machines, because it's going to be like at the start of the game, or it can really break the outputs. That would be one of them. The second one is like looking for ways to really integrate those AI tools on the entire customer journey. So when the customer is really touching or kind of going through different touch points in the relationship with you, your business, and your brand, making sure that those AI tools are integrated with the human model as well, right? If we have people at the stores, if we have then AI tools, like trying to identify and create that integration as much as possible. So the experience that I have as a shopper is not disjointed. It doesn't look like misaligned. And the third point is really continue learning about, it's like a lot of predictability, but trying to continue learning about how the shoppers are changing their own behavior, because as they are adopting this technology and AI, they may also change the way they behave. So it's a constant learning process, and trying to understand that evolution will be very important for us to be ahead of the game and deliver something that is new and unique before anyone else.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Carmen, for chatting with me today. This is a great conversation. I'm sure our audience members are taking away some really great nuggets to take back to their businesses.
My pleasure, Susan. It was very nice talking to you too.
Thank you.
Susan and Carmen, thank you for that rousing dialogue. It was fascinating to hear about the human plus model and how those working in the field right now are thinking about the human experience. This holistic look at leveraging data on how to free up time, save money, and find products that will provide us with more satisfaction puts me at ease. I think many of us worry that we'll be manipulated by AI to simply spend more money, but knowing that we can make AI work for us in the retail space is fantastic. And it goes hand in hand with what Jason spoke about in regards to letting AI buy your soap and handle the mundane tasks like that. I am all here for it. Additionally, your comments around how AI could combine with elements of augmented reality and Gen AI visualizations to enhance shopping portals in a way that is truly satisfying for the shopper and more likely to lead to a purchase, well, it's win to win. Awesome developments. Although it sounds like smaller brands may have to do some extra work to keep up with the data demands and implementation of AI, I believe that search engines will adjust and we'll adjust how we keep up with our favorite brands. Okay, well, Susan has a few more guests waiting in the wings for us. Next up, we have a panel discussion on AI powered commerce. AI is enhancing e-commerce and boosting brand loyalty with Jordan Sim, VP of Product at BigCommerce, and Ahmed Naim, who is the president of Lily AI. Susan, I'm going to kick things back to you.
Well, hello. I'm excited to be here today with Ahmed and Jordan. Thanks for joining me. Let's start with you, Jordan. Could you provide some examples of how generative AI is transforming marketing campaigns and content creation for online retailers?
Yeah, let me give you three examples that'll cover different channels actually within a marketing campaign. So you're going to get a feel of a different marketing mix. The first, coming from a e-commerce background, working at big commerce, I think the first channel I'll touch on is the storefront, the e-commerce platform. So that storefront channel. In terms of generative AI, one of the big plays right here is around dynamic product descriptions. So we're all familiar with visiting a product description page, a PDP. Gen AI has actually allowed us to analyze a lot of the product attribute data, taking in all of the product reviews, the customer reviews, even some of the trending keywords that's applied through search. And what Gen AI is able to do is create these unique, compelling product descriptions that are dynamically generated or tailored or personalized to the specific shopper or that particular target audience that has landed on the PDP, the product detail page. Ultimately, this enhances the appeal of that product to that particular shopper, which hopefully leads to increased conversions. So that's probably the first example that I would say on the e-commerce platform storefront channel. The second is really around email. Email is core to a lot of the marketing campaigns, and being able to personalize those email campaigns is critical. It's a time long truth. So Gen AI can help actually accelerate that drafting process of those personalized emails. It's not going to do the whole thing, but what it can do is really take in a lot of the data points and the signals like browsing behavior, purchase history, some of the shopper preferences, and Gen AI can help draft or craft that email to include um, product recommendations that are relevant, any tailored offers, as well as any relevant content that makes the email campaign so much more relatable to the shopper. The third is via social channels. Marketing today, very hard to not market on a social channel because you need to be where your customers are. But what we're starting to see is a lot more Gen AI powered social media content. Look, similar to email campaigns, from what I've seen so far, Gen AI does help streamline that drafting process. It doesn't replace the entire content creation because there's always going to be a bit of curation by the brand manager to ensure that what Gen AI has created is actually on brand and makes sense in terms of the imagery and the visuals and the experience. But really having that drafting process accelerated uh, really frees up a lot of valuable time for those marketers to really focus on strategy or campaign execution or campaign analytics. So yeah, three examples of how Gen AI is helping on the marketing front.
Great. That's a good list to get us started here on our discussion. Ahmed, I'm wondering how AI technologies are currently being used to enhance the customer experience in e-commerce, and kind of adding to that, what specific AI-driven tools or strategies have proven most effective in boosting brand loyalty?
Sure, that's a great question. So, uh, consumers ultimately love inspiration and discovery, and search is the key pathway to enabling that discovery. Yet, as we all know, search, whether on-site or off-site, isn't always the most satisfactory experience. Um, any of us can share a story about a time when we searched for something on Google and we're receiving completely irrelevant results. And that's from Google, right? So where we've really helped and have brought solutions to the market, AI solutions to market, is to fill the gap for retailers and help them drive the optimal discovery experience by leveraging natural language of the consumer throughout the customer purchasing journey, so they can bridge that gap between merchant speak and consumer speak, because at the core of the problem is that gap between the merchant speak and the consumer speak, and the consumer speak is continually evolving. That's what makes it extremely difficult to keep up with. um, and by leveraging AI solutions to really enrich product attribution, um, that vastly improves their performance across the entire e-commerce market to drive revenue and brand loyalty. For example, trends. And now with the advent of social media and TikTok, it trend setting is really bi-directional. Consumers today may start their journey on TikTok and see a new trend, whether it's coastal cowgirl or blokehead or eclectic grandpa, right? Things that, that are constantly evolving, changing, getting millions and billions of likes and views. They may be inspired by that and going to search, leveraging trends, leveraging synonyms, leveraging a specific occasion that they need something for, and to really enrich the product attribution with that natural language of the consumer and leverage that for search everywhere, drives up performance and, of course, relevance, which then translates into brand loyalty.
That's great. Yeah, I don't know how many times, I've been searching for something and then I search and then I click and here I'm on a completely different path from what I was expecting. And sometimes I don't realize it for a minute or two, I'll admit. But so Jordan, when we think about AI improving customer retention rates, what role does AI play in understanding and predicting consumer behavior?
Oh, look, I think it's very clear that AI plays a pivotal role in understanding and predicting the customer behavior. And let me just sort of go back to first principles because AI can be such a buzzy word. Even generative AI can be such a buzzy word. But if we really peel away that buzz and really just say like, what is AI and like what is core to AI? It's really data. It's about having a lot of data, right? And this is where really machine learning, which is the subset of like AI, that is where machine learning can really sit through a lot of those massive petabytes and terabytes of data, of customer data, really looking for particular signals like purchasing history, browsing behavior, social media interactions across the different social channels, even touch points and interactions with customer service, right? And bringing all of that data together, applying machine learning models and analyzing that data. Here, this buzzword of AI can really help those retailers understand the customer behavior. And it can actually help them understand them with a higher degree of accuracy than what they may be modeling today manually through an Excel spreadsheet, for example. And so it's through this analysis that we can really uncover patterns, trends, and reveal really valuable insights about who that customer is. What are their preferences? What are their motivations? Um, what are some of the potential factors that can cause them to churn? So really, if you just go back to the heart of what AI is, it's really data. And then when we think about customers and cutting up that data, really what's key in terms of a strategy would be customer segmentation. And I don't think that's groundbreaking. I know that sounds, that's been a very common approach to everything, but once you have the data, segmenting that data, understanding who your customer segments are, that's so foundational. Because ultimately that allows the retailer to tailor the marketing messages. Going back to that former question, you can personalize those marketing campaigns and those marketing messages to those segments, and really drive a very tighter relationship, and improve that engagement with them.
Yeah, I think that's what it all boils down to, right? Understanding and engaging the customer. And I really like how you phrased it. It really does come down to the data and being able to understand the data. I think that's really key because I think some people, retailers, brands, they hear the word AI and they're nervous, right? They don't really understand it. So I think that's a really great way to look at it. Um, Ahmed, I wanted to talk a little bit more about AI's role in advertising and capturing more search traffic. As you said, it's mainly driven by Google, also some on the social media platforms. But I'm wondering, how can AI improve product discovery and sales by driving more of the right traffic to the brand's website?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Lily AI, we actually made a name for ourselves by improving on-site search capabilities for e-commerce teams, which actually solve search and discovery and which actually solve search and discovery in a variety of contexts, both on-site and off-site. So what we've done over time is once we're able to work with retailers to enrich their product data, I think it goes back to that data point, um, to be really relevant and rich with the natural language of the consumer. There's been endless opportunities in how we help them leverage that to drive sales. And one of the main ways to do that is to actually leverage that through Google search. And we have a Google search offering with an integration into the Google Merchant Center, um, that really helps drive performance across not just Google, but all of the other channels when you think YouTube and others, um, to drive performance and leveraging our computer vision and generative AI solutions. Um, by deploying this, we've seen anywhere from 5 to 22% lift in Google search alone. And that's before adding incrementally the abilities and the opportunity to grow sales through the existing on-site search experience. But when we take a look at that, obviously we work with some of the largest retailers in the world. That's 8, 9 figure revenue lift. The impact is quite substantial considering 237 billion is spent on Google Ads in 2023, while cost has been rising and effectiveness has been declining. So really, fixing the underlying product data making that relevant, extremely accurate and relevant by product and product segment for each channel, whether we're looking at Google search versus on-site search, has been really transformative in improving, driving better traffic, higher qualifying traffic, highly qualified traffic that converts more, and ultimately driving those 8, 9 figure search results, revenue results that we have had experienced with many of our brands.
Just listening to the two of you talk, we've talked a lot about the opportunities, and it just kind of triggered a question in me. What are you seeing as the challenges or kind of worries from your customers of embracing AI, generative AI? Um, Jordan, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So in terms of challenges, I think one area that we're sensing is really around data ownership and processing of all the data. And the reason why I say that is with a lot of the implementations that we see, we work with a lot of partners in the ecosystem. Ahmed's already mentioned search. So, we have a partnership with Bloomreach and Algolia in terms of a content management system. We work with the likes of Content Stack. Even when you think about PIM, we work with Akeneo. So there's actually a lot of partners out there in the ecosystem that are all applying their own ML recipe to the same data set that ultimately is central and core to a retailer. And so I think the challenge is really there's no one centralized solution today. Part of that may actually be due to data privacy and having all of that information that is cross-channel or omni-channel stored in one place, but being able to have that centralized process in a consistent manner and having greater control is one of those challenges that we're starting to observe, especially when you have such a healthy ecosystem of partnerships.
Sure. Ahmed, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, that's such a valid challenge there that Jordan called out, and ultimately what we've aimed to do is solve that challenge by becoming that one central source of product attribution for brands, so that they could use that across Bloomreach, Algolia, Google, whoever. We don't replace anyone. We just really improve performance, as well as uh, data and security. And I think data privacy and security is a continual challenge for brands and retailers, as is adapting to the rapid technology changes. We're seeing a lot of pressure on retailers and brands to continually to improve their business, but with less resources, tight budgets, and a real focus on ROI, as we like to say, CFO math, something that will get the CFO to sign off on. Um, so how they assess, try to filter through all the noise of all that's out there and what is going to solve the most, what's going to be most impactful for them, solve the biggest need, and drive the right ROI, because everyone has a limited capacity of what they can adopt and how they can adopt it. So that's kind of some of the challenges that we have seen and have really tried to work with retailers on. Um, but there's certainly a lot of opportunity going forward as we look at leveraging AI and what's out there in the market, along with what we're doing today to really improve personalization. I think similar to what Jordan said around ad personalization, um, overall hyper personalization across different components of the customer journey, whether we're looking at um, recommendations as well, to really have much more targeted advertising and better performance. Um, and then eventually that could lead into other things like dynamic pricing as well. So there are challenges, but there's a lot of opportunity and solutions that are evolving to help brands kind of meet the need of the consumer, and which ultimately helps them perform better.
Great. Um, that was a lot of great things to unpack, but CFO math, that's really funny. I've never heard that phrase before, but that makes complete sense. So Jordan, what future AI trends do you see kind of shaping the e-commerce landscape?
Yeah, look, I think actually Ahmed touched on the one that I'm exploring the most, and the key word that he used was hyper personalization. I still feel we're really in the nascent innings for this. I know hyper personalization has been a marketing term for well over a decade in really trying to drive a better shopper experience on a storefront. But if we, for me, it's less so around like what is the content that's being hyper personalized. It's actually what is the behavior. And I think Ahmed touched on a little bit earlier where that shopper behavior is evolving so quickly. We even see this outside of commerce, right? Like previously we would go to Google for search, then we started to evolve to go to Amazon as like the first destination for search. And now in some cases we're actually evolving to go to ChatGPT for search related. And now that's a shift in behavior from like a very one directional structured type search query through to something that is more natural in terms of our language, how we behave. So if you take that behavioral aspect and then ask yourself, well, how do we personalize a shopping experience even more where we are influencing the behavior or shifting the behavior? Um, it's just actually wildly creative and becomes a very, very fascinating thing. I think I'm most curious about it because what we know as shopping today actually may not be the shopping behavior that we see in 5 years' time. Well, maybe that's a bit fast, right? But maybe even 10 years' time, it may look radically different. And what does that mean for the architecture of home pages or category pages or product detail pages? Would fundamentally shift and compress. So for me, Ahmed, I'm just going to take that keyword that you said there, but hyper personalization, not from a content standpoint, but from a behavioral standpoint, is one of the trends that I really see going forward.
Ahmed, do you have anything to add?
Couldn't agree more. That is really where things are heading and where you could leverage AI to really evolve how you engage your consumer. Um, and back to the original point is really to build that brand loyalty, right? Um, and that's really I think what the opportunity is for the brands we're working with today to continually to raise the bar of how they're servicing their consumer, help them find what they're looking for, bridge the gap between the inspiration that they have in other channels and how that's continually evolving and how they think and feel and talk about something and how that connects with your product. And it's evolving so much, it can only be done through technology, and leveraging that technology in the right use case and channel, right? And one of the most important things I speak to so many CEOs, it's you really have to be agile and test, um, and 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 really find what it works and continue to invest and double down on it. Um, the safest thing is to do nothing, but that is the easiest way to get left behind. So there is a lot of noise, a lot of pretenders out there, but ultimately, um, find the right need you want to solve for, test and learn quickly, um, and then iterate and improve on it. And all the things that we discussed today, from improving search, improving advertising, improving on-site experience, um, going more hyper personal, really leaning into hyper personalization, and bridging that gap with the consumer speak and the merchant speak, so that you are leveraging the natural language of the consumer and how you are really displaying your brand. That's the future. So it's really important for everyone to lean in at this point.
I think that's a great way to wrap up our conversation. It was a perfect summary, I think, of everything that we've talked about today. I know I've learned a lot. I hope that all of our attendees have as well. I just want to say thanks, Jordan and Ahmed, for joining me today and you have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Susan.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much, you three, for that great panel. It's an interesting thought that both companies selling their products and the consumer may mutually benefit from the hyper personalization of AI. It seems a bit sci-fi, but I can actually imagine that the AI would help consumers feel happy with their interaction with brands, and people would look forward to interacting with certain AIs, thus building customer loyalty. But furthermore, some of these AI chatbots of the future could really become quite endearing characters if personified and given a brand voice. A lot of creativity could be applied to these AI implementations. Another thing that I would love to do that was mentioned is to ask for things in natural language. For example, I would like a black pair of pants that are high waisted, have pleats, and flare out at the bottom. And then just have the interface show me a few curated results rather than browsing 120 items with filters, pants, and black. Well, Susan, Ahmed, Jordan, you have given us plenty to plan ahead for and explore as we take next steps into evolving our retail platforms and how that can foster brand loyalty. One final big thank you to all of you. Great to have you on. And until next time, excited for the next session on this. All right, we have got our next prize coming up. It is that time again. Again, you do need to be live and present and lucky here at the webinar to win. And with that, the second of three $300 Amazon gift cards is going out to James Jackson from Minnesota. Huge congrats, James. And as always, we're going to be reaching out after the webinar today to tell you how you can claim your prize. Now, we actually have our fourth and final presenter here to wrap things up on the AI Summit. I am so excited for this one. We have got the future of retail being wrapped up by Elizabeth Lafontaine, who is the Director of Research at Placer AI. Elizabeth is going to be shedding light on location analytics and how shaping the store of the future is informed by that. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on and share your insights and perspective with us. So, Elizabeth, take it away. The floor is yours.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for having me today. My name is Elizabeth LaFontaine, and I'm a director of research on Placer AI's analytical research team. We are a group of industry experts and data lovers who consult with our clients on a variety of business questions, strategies, or use cases using Placer's data. We represent Placer as subject matter experts in our respective industries and work on a weekly executive briefing called The Anchor, which I highly recommend signing up for. There's always really great insights and details on what's going on in retail and how we can use location analytics to really predict the future of the retail industry. So quickly, just to go through, what is Placer AI? How does it work? Placer at its core is really a foot traffic analytics company, and we're powered by mobile data. We provide insights on traffic movement around any physical place in the US, including shopping centers, retail locations, restaurants, and more. We leverage a panel of tens of millions of devices in the US and utilize machine learning to make estimations for visits to locations across the country. And our company and our products are built with a privacy by design approach. So, getting in today, we're really going to focus on a few examples of three different retailers and three different concepts as we think about the store of the future and how can we use location analytics to really predict what retailers are doing, but also really understand what consumers are doing. And we're going to focus on an example of right product, right store, and right location. But to kind of set the scene for everything today, I think it's important to talk about what are some consumer trends that are impacting the future of stores? What do we need to be thinking about as an industry as we relate it to what retailers are doing with their physical locations today and who is really being successful and what are the learnings we can take away from that. So the first trend that we're seeing with consumers is certainly the bifurcation of consumers based on household incomes as well as levels of disposable income. This is something that's really played out a lot over the last few weeks in terms of earnings reports from retailers, where we're seeing some of the kind of sectors like dollar stores on the lower end that they're really being squeezed because their consumer is struggling right now. And there's so many economic headwinds facing lower income consumers. But then we see some retailers in the specialty end of the spectrum that are still performing relatively well and seeing a lot of consumer resilience. So this bifurcation is getting a little bit wider over time. And it's something that we really need to think about as we think about the physical space in terms of retail. We're also seeing, and this is a trend that's been going on since sort of the pandemic period, but migration patterns. We've seen so many shifts in where consumers are and moving from one destination to another, even if it's going from an urban environment to suburban or rural. And with all of that movement of consumers, their retail needs have really changed. If somebody was in an apartment before in an urban center and they're now in a 2 to 3 bedroom house in a suburban environment and have a car, they might be able to fill that house with more goods, whether that's discretionary or essential purchases. And physical retail environments really need to kind of evolve and reflect the new migration patterns that we're seeing with consumers. Another thing that we've continued to see throughout 2024 is really this value orientation of consumers, that even consumers in those higher discretionary price bands, they still want to feel like they're deriving as much value out of those purchases as possible. And one of the things too that we think about retail is it's kind of this three-part equation, that there's value, convenience, and experience. And these are all levers that physical retailers can really pull as they're thinking and planning their future stores to satisfy those consumer needs. And finally, I think as we think about the physical retail space across the US, particularly in retail, we know that we as a store economy are still very much overstored. But stores are still a really important part of the consumer experience. And we've seen, sort of as e commerce levels have matured, that consumers still need physical retail in order to satisfy a lot of their needs and also the joy of shopping. But I think as consumers and retailers really think about what the future of stores looks like, it's about finding the right stores, not necessarily just opening more stores. And that's really what we're going to focus on today. So, our first example is going to be talking about sort of that right product concept of how can the future of stores really satisfy needs for consumers who are evolving at a blistering pace. So, the first example that we're going to talk about today from retail is actually a QSR operator, and it's Crumble Cookies. So, for anyone who has not heard of this chain, it's a dessert QSR chain, and it was founded in 2017, and it's grown to over 800 locations. And a lot of that exponential growth has really happened in part because of their satisfaction of consumer demands and really being able to evolve alongside their consumers. So, one of the things that they're really unique for is their rotational menu that changes every single week. So, they serve 6 different cookies on a menu each week, and every single week, those types of cookies are swapped in and out depending on what the pre planning is for that menu. So, the other thing that this retailer is really focused on is kind of the aspect of social media. So, if you've ever been on TikTok, you might see a Crumble Cookies review of the week by a content creator where they're going to Crumble every single week and trying that new rotational menu and those new flavors. So, this rotational menu has actually been very successful for Crumble as a concept, and we can see that using location analytics. So, what you're looking at in the chart here is the year over year change in weekly visits so far in 2024. And what we've seen is that visitation is actually up 13% for Crumble overall in 2024 compared to last year. And one of the other things that our data is actually able to tell us is that 15 weeks so far within 2024 have actually outperformed that 13% benchmark. And there's a few key learnings from those 15 weeks that really support the idea of this rotational menu. So 60% of those 15 weeks actually saw one new menu item introduced, and 30% of those 15 weeks actually saw a debut of 2 menu items, meaning these items had never been seen nationwide in a Crumble Cookies location before. And as consumers, as we talked about, are evolving at such a blistering pace, creating this manufactured scarcity that if you want to try this new flavor, you have to go into the store this week. Or if your favorite cookie is on the menu for this week, you've got to go back because you know it's not going to be there next week. This manufactured scarcity is really driving consumer adoption, and it's keeping consumers on their toes, which is ultimately what they want. The one other thing that I wanted to call out is the most recent week of data that we're seeing on the chart for August 19th, is that was when the collaboration with Olivia Rodrigo launched nationwide. They had been releasing these cookies in single locations during her Guts tour, but we actually saw the debut of this cookie nationwide, and we saw that there was actually about 80 to 90 or around 65% growth year over year for that week alone. So, what does this kind of tell us overall as we think about the future of stores? I think manufactured scarcity from a product perspective and keeping consumers wanting to come back is something that we're not seeing a lot in retail right now. But there's also a lot of logistical challenges for the franchisees and locations to be able to support a rotational menu. There's a lot of thinking about future locations, being able to drive and adapt to all of those changes that are constantly occurring on a menu. And as we think about the future of stores, we need to make sure stores are equipped to be able to be flexible, that they're able to adapt to changing consumer needs, because we know consumers are constantly going to be changing and we as an industry need to keep up with them. So, we're going to shift gears a little bit, and now we're going to talk about the right store. And as I alluded to at the beginning of the call, as we talked about sort of the consumer trends that we're seeing, so much of it is about finding the right types of stores for your consumers today. And we saw this trend really start in the last decade as we saw the launch of a lot of small format locations. We'll remember when Target was opening all of those city Target locations or on college campuses, and we saw Nordstrom local and grocery and convenience going into small format stores. We really saw that trend adopted widely across the industry. But we've also kind of seen it go the other way as well, where we're seeing retailers really get into large format stores. So whether that is in the mass merchant space or creating these destination type retailers for consumers, but we've also seen it in the essential space with grocery. So the example that we're looking at on the screen here is from HEB, which is a Texas-based grocery retailer. And this location they opened in February of 2023, and it's over 100,000 square feet. It's located in Austin, Texas. It's their Lake Austin store. And this is a prime example of how figuring out what types of formats can work for consumers. So this location has a barbecue restaurant. It has a bar that consumers can visit while they're shopping. But not only that, it has such a broad and wide selection and assortment for consumers, where they're really able to see this as a destination and not just a place where they're checking a box on their weekly to-do list or supporting somebody as they're just perusing the aisles. This really is creating an experience for consumers. And what we're able to do at Placer is really use location analytics to quantify the impact that these types of locations have had across the fleet for retailers, as well as just the general area in which they live. So, besides looking at just changes in traffic, we can also see through our data to look at visits by day of the week. So, we're able to see the penetration throughout days of the week. We're also able to look at that by hours of the day. And we're also able to look at how long consumers are spending their time in store or dwell time. So, from the perspective of the new store in Lake Austin, if you look at the chart on the left hand side, this is looking at the share of weekend visits. So, the penetration of Saturday and Sunday to the total visitation of the store. And what you can see is that new large format store is having a higher percentage of visitors coming during the weekend compared to all HEB locations in the Austin, Texas DMA, as well as neighboring locations to that Lake Austin store. So we have more people that are coming out during the weekend. They're seeing this as a destination. They want to go and visit. They want to spend time there. And they're not just going there for that quick grocery trip or looking for convenience. They're really craving that experience. And we can see that through our data. On the right-hand side, you're looking at dwell time or median visit duration in minutes. And what you can see is that the Lake Austin Boulevard store, around the average consumer or visitor that's coming in is spending 37 minutes there, which for a grocery trip is a pretty long time. And that's because consumers are coming in and looking for all the experiential elements. They're taking a longer time to browse in the store. They're just focused on deriving as much out of that shopping trip as they can. And I think that this really showcases that stores of the future need to provide more than, as we said, just checking a box for consumers. We need to think about that experiential element of physical retail, because even for consumers looking for value and looking for convenience, there always sometimes needs to be that wow factor and that reason to come in. And the other thing too is that it fosters a relationship between consumers and a brand and really creates that inherent value that consumers are looking for, and something that's often elusive right now in the retail industry. So, our final example today is going to be looking at more of a small scale retailer, but one that is growing very quickly. And I think that there are a lot of learnings that we can apply as we think about the future of stores. So, for anyone who has not heard of Studs, Studs is a jewelry retailer that has about 25 locations. Most of them are based in major metropolitan areas across the US, but they are kind of a hybrid retail environment. So, they actually provide piercing services for second, third, fourth ear piercings, along with being a jewelry showroom and retailer. So if you think about, and The reason that they created this concept was to really fill a white space in the retail industry. So, if we think about where additional piercing services are located for adults, you typically have to visit someplace like a tattoo parlor that might have additional piercing services. It's not like a place where you can go when you get your ears pierced for the first time. So Studs saw this hole in the market, especially for consumers in the Gen Z and millennial cohorts, and wanted to create something that had an experience that felt right for this consumer demographic, didn't make them feel weird or ashamed, and really could create an experience that was unique and for this group alone. And we've really seen signs of success in this concept of creating a experiential component and a service component, as well as a traditional retail environment as well. So what you're looking at on the screen is once again the year over year change in weekly visits so far this year, but we're comparing Studs performance here, their growth in visitation compared to the average of jewelry retailers across the US. And jewelry is a category that's been challenged like a lot of other discretionary categories, specifically in the soft lines. So think about apparel, accessories, footwear. A lot of those businesses have been very challenged. But what we can see is that Studs, as a unique and innovative concept, continues to grow, and their growth is outperforming other jewelry retailers that we see right now. And a lot of that has to do with not only creating a store environment that is right for their consumers, but also where they are choosing to open store locations. So, as we talked about stores of the future, sometimes it's not just about what's going on in your four walls and the experience that you're curating there, but it's about what's going on around you. And are you placing yourself in a location that's going to help you be successful? So, here we're looking at Studs through the lens of Placer's frequent co tenants report. And what this is really able to see is what retailers are most often co located with a stud store. So we can see a lot of different retailers that really appeal to the same demographic cohort that Studs does. So a jewelry retailer like Gorjana, or major beauty retailers like Sephora and Blue Mercury, or Warby Parker and Lululemon, or a QSR chain like Shake Shack. All of these retailers and QSR operators are looking to fill that same void for their consumers. And there's a lot of cross visitation between these types of retailers and the Studs consumer. So, as retailers are thinking about where to open new store locations, a report like this could be really helpful in understanding who are you currently co-located with. And if you think about your target demographic, are there other opportunities for location scouting to figure out how to get you in the right spot to reach your consumer base? Because consumers want to be able to cross shop and cross visit all of these locations easily. It kind of plays back into that convenience element so that they're getting and creating and curating that shopping trip that's right for them. So, as we wrap up today and kind of think about the future stores, it comes from innovation for new brands like we saw with Studs and Crumble, but it also comes from long term strategic investments from established retailers. If we think about the examples from Target and HEB and testing all of these store formats, both of those combined are really what are going to define the future of stores. And I think one of the things our data at Placer really underscores is that visitors are choosing to visit retailers that are doing things differently right now. We know that there is a lot of consumer headwinds going on right now, but consumers are always going to focus on value. But there's also this higher willingness to try new retailers and also visit multiple retail locations to really suit the needs of the individual consumer. And I think as we think about how to plan for the future of stores, it comes down to focusing on that kind of trio of value, convenience, and experience, but also building the foundation of building the right stores in the right locations with the right products and assortments for your consumers. If we can get that foundation right, then we're setting ourselves up for success. We're always interested, I think, as an industry in where consumers are spending both their time and their money. And with location analytics, specifically with what we do at Placer, we can truly unlock that first element of where consumers are spending their time and where they're visiting to help the industry build the future of stores. Thank you so much for your time today, and hope wish you all the best as we continue to build the future of retail and the future of stores.
Elizabeth, I loved this session because it brought us back to the physical spaces we visit and interact with. We've been talking a lot about e commerce, and with e commerce, the shopping experience can change and shift, but it still lives on a screen or perhaps images on our glasses or goggles. And yet, we are still human and we like immersive experiences. People still like to go see and touch and interact with products and relate to brands based on the physical spaces they inhabit. Thinking about how we can use data and funnel it through AI to inform the retail experience of the future will definitely be something brands want to pay close attention to. As you mentioned, this may be the store itself, ways to attract visitors to the stores, or the area the shop is in and the other retailers nearby. Again, so much great information discussed here today. And Elizabeth, I just want to give you one final thank you for all of your information and for being here as well. Now, right now, we have our third and final $300 Amazon gift card. So if you've been waiting, fingers crossed, toes crossed, well, you might be the lucky one. So quick drum roll here on your desks. Last reminder, you do need to be present here on the webinar to win. And our final winner of the day is LaDonna Smith from Michigan. LaDonna, huge congratulations to you and huge congrats to all three of our winners, who I'm going to recap just in case you stepped away and you missed it. So, first was Stephanie Malaki from Washington, second, James Jackson from Minnesota, and third, but not least, is LaDonna Smith from Michigan. As always, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after today's webinar. And with that, I want to thank, on behalf of Future B2B and the team at SmartBrief, all of our speakers here today for making this webinar possible. And a big thank you to all of you for attending and taking some time to step into the future, look at the future of retail. I hope you have all gotten some interesting ideas and tips, and maybe you're leaving feeling excited and ready to take some next steps on how to use AI in the retail sphere. I know that I am, and I'll be doing a lot of follow up research on some cool tools that I want to play with after attending this webinar. Um, now, a quick reminder about the Smart Brief AI Awards. If you are interested, hop over into that handouts tab so that you can snag that link to enter. And you'll also want to snag any other useful handouts in there from our speakers and sponsors because we're about to wrap things up. Now, if you enjoyed today's session, I invite you to register for the final upcoming session in this series, AI and the Future of Education. That's taking place September 19th, 12 p.m. Eastern. And if you are in the webinar today and you would like to chat about presenting or sponsoring a future summit, EcoCast, or MegaCast webinar, well, we'd absolutely love to hear from you. You can reach out via email at connect@futureb2b.com. Alrighty, that is all, folks. I hope to see you all again at the next AI session. And until then, have an absolutely magical rest of your day. Take care, everybody.